Very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain.
Rise and shine. It is a beautiful Wednesday morning here in Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital. I'm Kayode Okikiri. You're welcome.
Well, the challenges continue to bite us in the bum. It's not been exactly good. Not a good morning. It wasn't that great a night for many who applied that Lagos-Ibadan expressway last night. They kept on relaying their harrowing experiences to all of those who, or most of those who they could get across to. Because, I mean, you have persons who were making use of that route, going out and coming back into Lagos, and it was a nightmare. It still is, anyway, because the students protested on that road, and they say that they will continue their protest on major highways up until the government listens to them and gets them back to school. Well, you do remember that ASUU embarked on this strike, industrial action, on the 14th of February, and ever since then it's been back and forth between themselves and the government. And recently, they are in the industrial courts with the government taking them there, trying to see or determine whether or not it's, well, they are entitled to be paid if they don't work, which, of course, ASUU argues otherwise. But now this is, these are images coming through from that Lagos-Ibadan expressway. Now, that Shagamu interchange has been hurrying, but of course, you know, there's construction going on in different parts of, along different parts of that road. And, you know, it may be mixed, really, because if students were trying to get a lot more people on their side to be sympathetic to them as a result of what is going on, I don't know how many they might have gotten as a result of this strike, because you got lots of them who think, look, they are not the ones who are in any way directly or indirectly responsible for them being at home. And then they are the ones who are bearing the brunt, the road users at the moment, because, of course, many will always argue that you can make your point in different ways at different other areas, but subjecting all of those motorists to this harrowing experience, it always has a huge question mark to it. And at the moment, this is what's going on there, and who knows how the authorities will respond. Will they say, okay, well, look, don't let this escalate, because right now we're going to go into campaigns sooner rather than later. And, you know, you could almost guess how some reactions will come through. They could accuse the opposition of being the ones who are responsible for this, and others security could just get there. You never can tell how some of these things, because most importantly, we don't want anything to go beyond a peaceful protest.
Then clearly, this is a very, very tricky situation. Incidentally, it was on this day 7 months ago that ASUU declared that strike, February 14th. Recall that infamous Valentine's gift from ASUU to, well, the students, Nigerians at large. And we've been battling this 7 months. It is mind-boggling to think that for 7 months we've not been able to resolve this impasse. I mean, that's what government is for. That is what we have institutions for. So 7 months this has lasted, and we've not been able to come to a compromise, sort of even suspending the strike, not ending the strike, maybe just suspend, come back to work for 2 weeks. It is mind-boggling, it is disappointing, it is saddening. I can go on and on. But, you know, particularly for that stretch of road, if you just imagine the quantum of economic activities that depend on that Lagos-Ibadan expressway in terms of volume, in terms of value, it is a big one. I've heard people tell their stories being stuck on the road for 7 hours, 8 hours yesterday. But guess what? It continues even up until this morning, and my heart just goes out to people who've had to ply that route. By the way, this, I mean, the picketing of the road, the blocking of the road just came to make a bad situation worse for travelers on that route, really. So my heart goes out to people who've had to use that route in the past few months or even years, where we've had the constructions, the different back and forth. It's been a harrowing experience. So imagine how you would feel then, having endured the traumatizing experience of having to travel to Lagos through that route over the past few months or years. And then yesterday, it got even worse. really, I know that for the students, this is, I mean, taking their destiny into their hands. And I know we've always said this, Chamberlain, that when two elephants fight, it is the grass that suffer. And maybe this is changing into when three elephants fight now, because the students clearly are saying we don't want to be the grass in this case anymore. We also want to be major, at least major stakeholders. We want our voices to be heard. We want at least our own side of the story to be taken on board. Whether or not this will elicit the appropriate reaction or maybe the decision we expect government ASUU to take is another thing entirely. But if you have thousands of people who have been stranded on that route, by extension, even millions of people whose businesses, livelihoods depend on that, having to say, you know what, we need to resolve this once and for all, then I think that maybe there can be some mileage. After all, it's meant to be all for one, one for all. So if the students of this country, yes, they're not millions, clearly, just maybe hundreds of thousands. If they're out of school, then it should be something concerning for the millions of Nigerians out there. So perhaps this will be a case of all for one, one for all. Let us come together and ensure that this 7-month strike ends as soon as possible. Perhaps that can be at least a happy ending to this story. Chamberlain.
Well, hopefully that's what a lot of people like to see, but you know, lots of residents, citizens who always ask that question. Are there ways that they could channel or creatively channel that protest to the authorities, those who are, you know, the policymakers and the likes, as opposed to letting the regular citizens bear the brunt largely, because that is what this protest blocking on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, protesting on that road, appears to be doing to a lot of people. And, you know, just as you said, look, how the authorities respond to this will be key, because, look, if 7 months, come to think of it, it's not 1, 2, or 3, 7. And it's not exactly clear if they're about to call it off or get back to the classrooms anytime soon, because they've gone to the industrial court and trying to sort that thing out. And many will always ask you, so what, if the industrial court rules that, well, if it goes ASUU's way, will government suddenly have the funds to pay the backlog, having argued or put it out there that they don't have the funds? And if it doesn't go their way, how will ASUU themselves respond to it? So these are some of the questions that are out there that we'll just wait and see what happens, because chances are that when those campaigns kick off at the end of the month or in a couple of weeks or days, attention may shift. And, well, they're still a government anyway, so they're expected to do what they have to do while at it or while there. But yeah, you can always go ahead and let us know what you think about all that is going on, while we just take a moment and return to you with some of the dailies here today. Take a look at this leadership newspaper today. We'll start with that one. Insecurity. Northern governors, traditional rulers back creation of state police. It's not the first time you hear this kind of narrative, but look at the writers if it helps. Pledge to support amendment of constitution to achieve goal. Agree to harvest 2,000 megawatts of solar energy to spur region's economic activities. I've done well in security infrastructure, PMB declares. So, you know, it's getting to that point where economy should play or will play a big role in what happens in 2023 or how leaders emerge. Well, look, I know they will always tell you, much as that may be or should be a major consideration, but in reality, is it always the case, given how we've always voted in this country? The factors that influence or largely determine how people vote, does this come into the fray at the end of the day, because if people say they weaponize poverty, you see reports as to vote buying, INEC scrambling or trying to see what they can do to ensure that they stamp out that trend of vote buying. So it is a thing. So who knows? But with this creation of state police, I wonder if it's not DOA. But look, it's good to be optimistic about some of these things. Well, that is the big lead on the front page of Leadership today.
All right, take a look at Vanguard newspaper. That's next in our lineup. The big story is on politics, and it's something that has been in the news for a while. It looked like he went a bit low, but now he's back. No going back on opposition to same faith ticket. Forum of Northern Christians. It's a page 5 read, but take a look at the writers. As Dogara, Babachir Lawal, CAN chairman from 19 northern states meet their 5th columnists, APC source. I don't believe in playing politics with religion, Okowa slams Tinubu, Obi. You see why Atiku picked Okowa as running mate over Wike, others. It's coming from ASUU. So it's a lot there, clearly, still forming a major point of discussions across political parties and other groups. So page 5 has more details. By the way, that picture there shows President Buhari just under the big story in Imo commissioning projects. Quite an interesting visit by the president yesterday to Imo State. You see that one there? Insecurity. Northern governors, monarchs call for state police. And I wonder who this call is going to, really. Is it going to the president, who has said, well, he's not really a fan of state police, really? Or is this going to legislators who, by the way, at least have a relationship with the governors and the monarchs themselves? In fact, they are representatives of, the governors, monarchs, and all of that. So I wonder who this call is going to. It looks like we just keep making the calls when truth is we can actually make it happen, I imagine. So who is standing in the way of state police? Is the president standing in the way? Is any other person standing in the way? Perhaps that is who this call is going to. I'll take this one for you. Kaduna train attack. Mamu aided local international groups. That's excerpt from the case submitted by the DSS. It's on page 11. The DSS had said, well, there are very interesting revelations from the investigations into Mamu. So the case is in court now. You wonder how this will play out. But this case has been trending on social media. People bringing up, different angles to all of this. And you wonder, perhaps we're onto something big. Maybe, maybe not. Page 11. We'll give you more details. It's a big news day, really, on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. So you might want to take a look at the other stories. Before I take Mr. and Mrs., let me just take what's on the back page for you. That's sports, Vanguard Sports. AJ accepts all terms to finally fight Fury on December the 3rd. That's right. Usyk offers to help AJ. So just how many months after he's set to undertake another journey? We wish him the very best, really. I know for a lot of people, they might be a bit anxious for him. So that's it, sports. Mr. and Mrs., quickly, you see Mrs. telling Mr., I'm your wife. I'm also a doctor, so I know what I'm saying. You need to slow down in everything you do. Even the way you eat, you must take your food slowly. And Mr. responds with a question. What if it's fast food? Mr. deserves some knock this morning. Let's leave it there for the Vanguard newspaper.
Okay, we hope they sort themselves out, Mr. and Mrs. But take a look at The Guardian next. APC dressing Nigeria in borrowed robes. Atiku slams Buhari's policies. Vows to earmark $20 billion for Nigeria's infrastructure financing if elected. Presidential candidates accuse LCCI of bias over non-invitation to parley. Well, you'll always get that. If you know how many presidential candidates there are. So, and then you see Atiku, I've never seen Lagos so mobilized for PDP. And then amid resignation calls, ASUU jet out of Nigeria. Dogara, Babachir continue agitation against APC's Muslim ticket, meets 19 Northern CAN chairmen. halt gale of defections from APC. Former aspirants beg Tinubu. So no matter what happens, they will always bring in that political component. After all, I mean, that's what they're doing, politicking, as it were. So not just they're supposed to focus on the economy, but yeah, politicking also played out there. But look at this at the bottom stream. Owerri streets deserted as Buhari commissions projects in Imo. And then still back to politics. ADC participation in 2023 polls doubtful as INEC rejects caretaker committee. So they appear to be in a bind now. What next, and how can they wriggle out of this if they consider it, a huge headache, as it were? Well, that is The Guardian today.
Well, next up is this Nigeria with this lead. Prolonged ASUU strike, NAN's protests ground Lagos-Ibadan expressway. Students will continue to occupy major highways until schools resume. So there you have it. You can just imagine what that will do to the economy, to the livelihoods of people. Will this be a wake-up call, the final wake-up call that the parties involved need? We'll see that. By the way, our colleague Buki is stuck in that traffic right now. So you just imagine the ripple effect across board. So that's the lead on the front page of this Nigeria. And just under the big picture, we want justice, equity. Ndibo tells Buhari. President promises development projects in Imo. The question of justice and equity, it's so bedeviling our nation, really. You wonder, is there a way to finally resolve this? We've tried to write it into laws, the federal character. I mean, some have unwritten rules. Politicians and political parties try to find a way to balance, but still we have not found a solution to this question of justice and equity. Perhaps, do we need more laws? Do we need people to just be a bit more understanding and just be fair in what they do? I honestly don't know. Perhaps let us know, how do we resolve this question of justice and equity? Because I can tell you, go to any region, you keep hearing that, that clamor for justice and equity. We need some sort of representation and all of that. So it's a big one facing our country, Nigeria. And perhaps the candidates can speak to that as well. How would you ensure justice and equity for Nigeria? I'll just take this one more for you. Nigeria spends 15.8 billion naira on weapons, ammunitions importation in H1 2022. That's the first half of the year. 15.8 billion naira. It will be good to see how well, do an audit, how well that has improved the security situation in the country. That's this Nigeria newspaper for you.
Take a look at No Telegraph next. Debt servicing, APC dressing Nigeria in borrowed robes. Ascribed to Atiku. Yeah, it's a similar narrative with The Guardian, so that's why it sounds as though you might have heard it before. But yeah, says budget deficits above permissible thresholds, promises economic stimulus fund in 100 days. So that's what you see right there. And then they also have that insecurity bit at the bottom strip. Northern governors, royal fathers endorse state police. Say ASUU strike adversely affecting region. We need 5 trillion naira, not 1.1 trillion naira, ASUU chief. So, I mean, with this new perspective of them backing state police, and several other governors have also said, talked about the need for state police. I remember I was putting that question to a governor. He said they all just have not been on the same page, if you remember that narrative properly. But now that if northern governors and monarchs are backing state police and the southern governors backing state police, so does that then mean that National Assembly couldn't have even done this if the governors didn't support it, or the monarchs and everybody else didn't support it, because it's fallen through not once, but I think about twice, if not more, in the National Assembly? And would they even pick it up from here now with this narrative coming through? I guess time will tell. But yeah, you also get to see Buhari says, my administration has done well, even if, so that bit also features. That's New Telegraph this morning.
This one on insecurity. Northern governors, monarchs back state police. Of course, Jemil has mentioned that across other front pages. To harvest 2,000 megawatts of solar power, says ASUU strike hits North more. Call for truce. So, I mean, try to talk on different issues, on security, on power generation, and of course supply, and this ASUU strike. Clearly, we're not bereft of ideas and solutions, and usually the question that comes next is who's meant to take this on board? Who's not doing what they ought to do? And I think while we proffer solutions, we probably should identify those people so they know that, oh, you're speaking to me, right? Okay, then I need to take this on board. I think that will help moving forward. Of course, some other stories which you've seen. Atiku pledges 7 trillion naira economic stimulus fund in first 100 days in office to halt support to, or rather, let me just see this, to halt support to alien state-owned companies, vows to reduce borrowing. Quite an interesting talking points there. We'll take that on board for you. Just break it down, help you to see, you know, the issues at stake. I found this one rather bit bizarre, interesting as well. You see, bandits free ex-councillor, give him bike to raise 8 million naira for them. It's just bizarre on different sides, really. Give him bike to raise 8 million naira for them. Goodness. Let's leave it there for Daily Trust.
The very next one we've got for you here today on the program, and Daily Times focuses on what President Buhari was talking about while he had that visit in Imo. So you can see the lead story there. Those who should be marketing my regime not doing so. Buhari berates previous administrations for not being committed to economic infrastructure development, says his administration will leave legacy projects nationwide. So the president says those who should have been marketing his regime not doing so. 7 years plus, how come that you still left them there? But there you go. So it means that he's definitely of the impression that there should be a lot more that people should know concerning what the government has done, because if it says they should be marketing, it means there's something to market and they're not doing that. So that informs this lead story, I reckon. Look at what's at the bottom strip. Economic prosperity via private sector engagement, my priority. Bubakar, so he was speaking at the LCCI forum, so which several other dailies have also alluded to. Court grants DSS 60 days to investigate Tukur Mamu. That's the big one you see right there. And then Kanu to know fate soon. As Court of Appeal reserves judgment. And speaking about different courts, even internationally, oh, that news that broke. I mean, one of the dailies today, it says that UK police declined comments on Ekoribado's health status because, I mean, several posts have been ascribed to the daughter saying that his dad equally has some health challenge, and as such might have gotten worse since he's in detention. But that report says that UK police have declined comment, and that definitely raises a lot more questions, because you have more people who will want to know why they decline comment. If there was something to say, wouldn't they have said it? So who knows? I guess we'll see how that pans out, as it were. That is Daily Times today.
You know that classic saying, the more you hide something, the more people are curious about it. So it's important to at least set the record straight. And that lead on the front page of Daily Times about marketing the president. You wonder if those marketers have targets, as you have in private institutions. If you don't meet your target, well, take a look at News Direct as we wind down this morning. Senate rejects 12.43 trillion naira budget deficit, 6 trillion naira tax, import duties waivers. Lots of trillions there but you need to understand that story. Directs customs to conduct downward review of proposed waivers by 50%. Tasks FIRS to investigate tax credit abuse by companies. So just to summarize that, we're sort of in a fix, okay? We have a big budget. We don't have enough, at least, financing to meet that budget. That's why you see the budget deficit, 12.43 trillion naira, and then taxes, import duties, waivers, 6 trillion naira. Clearly doesn't measure up, so we need to meet that gap, and yeah, we'll be talking about that as well, because the budget deficit, this deficit financing, has been a major debate for economists ever since the inception of this administration. So what is that all about? More details on the inside pages, page 4. I'll just take this one finally. Energy transition, Nigeria to benefit as U.S. pledges $200 million for clean energy initiative. You recall that conversation also about the debt for energy transition funding, sort of like that. So maybe this is part of it, maybe not. More details on the inside page. Let's leave it for Nigeria News Direct. Chamberlain. Okay, well, I think we're done with the look at the front pages, but that's just a starter for you. We have so much for you on the program, so grab a cup of coffee, whatever works for you, and let's get into this in a moment. Stay with us.
The skies over the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, LCCI, Victoria Island, holds no clue as to the event about to unfold. The arrival of presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Atiku Abubakar, lets the cat out of the bag. Once inside, with senior members of the PDP, including Governor of Sokoto State, Aminu Tambuwal, present, and top business personalities, the Private Sector Economic Forum for the 2023 presidential elections begins.
This year, we are witnessing very high oil price, but Nigeria is not benefiting from it. Nigeria is not aligned. For about a decade, equity prices have been high, but Nigeria is not benefiting global equity prices. Saudi Arabia has listed Aramco, and today they own Aramco 2.4 trillion on their balance sheet, an economy of only $800 billion. Nigeria is postponing the day of listing NMPC.
His preamble sets the stage for Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, who indicates why the country needs sound economic policies.
Creating economic opportunities for Nigerians will represent significant implication for social cohesion and national security. Increased jobs and income opportunities will reduce the likelihood of our youth being involved in crime, violence, and conflict, motivated by manipulating religious, ethnic, or regional differences. Economic prosperity is an integral part of my 5-point agenda, soon to be officially unveiled, that seeks to restore Nigeria's unity, 1, strengthen national security, 2, foster economic prosperity, 3, improve education, 4, delivery and restructure the polity, 5.
He goes on to unveil his economic agenda if voted into office at next year's presidential elections.
Understanding the private sector and securing their buy-in when policies are designed will determine the success of our economic growth and development agenda. Through regular dialogue with the private sector, we will build consensus, improve trust between us, and make new reform initiatives easier to implement and sustainable.
A sense of wetting of the and Nigerians is left behind on the intentions just revealed.
All right, welcome back. Yes, that is what we're going to focus on this morning. We've got Chief Alaba Yusuf joining us here in the studio. He is the Head Public Relations and a member of Spokespersons Committee of Atiku Okawa 2023 Presidential Campaign Team. Good morning and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Chibalen, and good morning, Nigerians.
Well, we will have an economist also join us in a moment, but in the meantime, yeah, much as yes, trying to reel out what he would do in the economy if he's elected. But I mean, yes, it's the economy, but it's still politics. And then you wonder, many always ask this question, wait a minute, your party is still embroiled in this back and forth. Is that not going to weigh heavily on the party moving into these elections, even though we're talking about trying to put the economic footprint out there at the moment?
Thank you very much. I wanted to sit this discussion on the comfortable sofa of knowledge, which has to do with the message and the messenger. Who is the man Atiku? A man who has turned around his own life, his own community, even at national level. He's done it before. So he means business. So the party on its own, I don't speak for the party. But we know that as a public relations person, in human affairs, conflict is bound to happen. But conflict resolution is always there as well. There are mechanisms for it. Consultation is going on, conciliation is going on. And the third C will not happen, which is confrontation. It won't happen. I can bet with you.
But when that controversy questions a man's integrity, it raises more questions because, I mean, you heard the Rivers governor say categorically that can the man Atiku, as you say or deny categorically at that he did agree or he did say that the chairman of the party actually has to go. He hasn't responded to that.
Shebale, I said it earlier on. I wouldn't like to be dragged into this, but common sense dictates that there's a difference between a presidential candidate emerging and a president emerging. What the rule says, the convention of the PDP, is that once a president comes from one zone, definitely the chairman cannot come from said zone, not presidential candidates.
No, they're two different things.
I'm just saying,
yeah.
Try to understand what I'm saying. Now, to say that someone said if the president comes, the president has not come from the north. You have a presidential candidate coming from the north.
That's why I said they're two different things. Yeah. When you say you don't want to be dragged into this, there's nothing to be dragged into because this is what is out there. And it speaks
no,
to
we have explained it over and over. That's what I'm saying.
No, they haven't explained this part where the Rivers governor, after the BOT chairmanship changed, the Rivers governor said, look, that is not what we spoke about. We had a conversation, himself and your candidates. He did categorically tell the Rivers governor that, yes, I agree that ASUU has to go. Now, the reason why this is coming up is, look, yes, it's real that his policies, but they say, look, how do we take politicians for what they are? They could say anything. And if what we're seeing now, you have said you're going to do this, you didn't do it, on what basis then are we then going to agree with all of what you said you would do? If
that's what you're saying, you say politicians say things. Who was the third party to this agreement? Where was this agreement written? The Rivers governor, our very good brother, you know, the talk and do guy. As a PR person, I would tell people that it is high time to sip the milk of truth. You understand me? There are times you fight a good fight and you do it in the wrong manner. Do you get my point? The fact remains that when he was campaigning, he did not say he doesn't want to be VP. And because of, do you understand me? He said it, did it. But this is politics. Atiku is a statesman. He will not be caught napping. He's interested in how to revive Nigeria. Where the country is in a slope.
Well,
the country is broke. Atiku is throwing down a rope of hope.
You know,
that's what we should be talking about. Excuse me, I don't think we should be going into... Oladimeji has been here. A couple of people have been here to discuss this matter. The party is working on it. I know journalists want headlines. I'm a journalist too.
No, would you respect that begs the question.
Yeah.
Because has your principal, for instance, told you categorically that I did not agree to what Wike said that ASUU has to go? Has he told you that?
All I'm saying to you, if there was any agreement or discussion, it is if a president comes from the north, not a presidential candidate coming from the north. It is not about him saying it, it's about what the convention, the PDP rules.
So if he hasn't told you that I did not agree that the chairman has to go, as the Rivers governor has said, on what grounds then are you saying that it is when the candidate emerges?
I'm saying to you, that's the PDP rules. If a president comes from the north, from one zone, the chairman cannot come from the same zone. It's quite different from a presidential candidate. Excuse me.
That's not what I'm asking.
That's what I said to you.
But that's not what I'm asking.
I'm just saying to you.
Question you want to answer.
Excuse me. The presidential candidate is not the party. It's not the one that makes the rules. He cannot on his own say, this is what he's saying for the party.
So
the party says, the party rule states that if the president comes from a particular zone, the chairman will come from another zone. And if the chairman comes from one zone, the secretary will go to the other zone. It's quite simple. It's not just one office. What I'm saying is that why it's like a case in court. You don't want to start talking about it. That's why I'm saying people are working on how to reconcile people. You know, we should not put a wedge.
You know, what you're saying is it's clear that you don't want to answer that question directly.
No, we're here to discuss. We're talking about, excuse me, Nigeria is about, there's hunger in the land.
Hang on a minute. Now that he's discussed all of these policies, because it's not just about isolating a particular matter. Many will be looking at the big picture, because even when you do public relations, you don't isolate a particular matter. You're packaging the person himself, totality of that, and this is part of it all.
This is what I just said to you.
He's read out these policies.
Yes.
And many will look at it and say, look, well, okay, well, he said this, which is usual things that politicians will tell you that they will do.
But he also talked about dialogue. If you have read that statement very well, he talked about dialogue and national cohesion to build unity for national development.
To build unity for national development.
Yes.
But you can't unify the fracas going on with your party. Then you want to unify the country?
Excuse me.
How is that going, how is it going to do that?
Excuse me. It's not, let's make this a one-man business. Atiku is a team leader. He's a team player. This is a party matter.
So he can't,
nobody is bigger than the party. He's not the type of person that will go on in the press. You understand me?
Okay, if he will not go on the press, has he then told you that he didn't agree to what the Rivers governor said he agreed on?
Excuse me. What you trying to? The angle you are pushing. The angle you are pushing. Don't forget, we're all journalists together.
We're not pushing any
angle. Excuse me. All I'm saying to you, excuse me, because His Excellency Atiku has not come to say...
There is nothing we're asking here that Nigerians haven't wondered about. There's no big deal here.
His Excellency Atiku is a member of the PDP. His Excellency Wike is also a member of the party. The chairman of the party is a member of the party. There's a national working committee of the party. You have the board of trustees. People should respect the organogram of an institution. The party has a way of, there are rules. That's why I'm not, you say we should treat things holistically. So that's why I'm not dragging one point out to say somebody said this person said that. If people have grievances, let them table it. There are channels of settling dispute. Do you get my point? So, because this is a more serious matter. Today, you started your program with students blocking the highway. Let's not forget that the 1789 French Revolution was caused by the absence of bread, hunger. Nigeria is moving towards that end now. God forbid.
Well, you know,
so that's what I'm saying.
Looking through the policies,
issue of an individual
economic policies
yes,
that he reeled out, because we're going to tell Nigerians they'll make up their minds how they vote, looking at the whole thing. They'll ask questions of the persons. They look at what they've done. It won't just be based, perhaps I reckon, may not be based on just one item, but that's up to them to decide. But because he's been in government as well, so he's not new. People have seen certain things about him, so they will form their opinion and their perspectives. But if you look at some of his policies or things that he says that he will do, you know, you have people who wonder, looking at all of these, they could easily ask themselves, look, several people have said the different fora that as the country is presently structured, some of economic policies will not just work until you strengthen the federating units and ensure that they function, because they always take us down history lane and tell you, look at when the regions were competing with themselves. Economically, academically, institutions were coming up, they were really strong. And so if we don't lay emphasis on that, we still may have a challenge, no matter how much of these policies you realize.
Yes, thank you very much for saying this. Atiku believes in government of national unity. He's the first among his peers to talk about devolution of power. And what is devolution of power? Giving enough responsibility to the states, federating units. He has always been talking about lean federal government. And he has mentioned it. It's part of his 5 points agenda. That's why he comes across as a unifier, a bridge builder, a reformer. And it's something he has done before. You look at the totality of his life. Atiku is pan-Nigerian, is detribalized. He's not a religious bigot. And he's a compassionate politician. He's a statesman. And that's why you don't see him talking recklessly anywhere. You can't say Atiku said this. No. He would rather talk to you, even when he disagrees with you, he talk to you nicely. So what I'm saying is that the issue of his policies coming across as a bridge builder, as a unifier, is going to bring people together from everywhere. He has always been talking about it, that there is need to build unity for national development.
Well, that question just can't seem to get off my mind. But since had another guest join us, and Kaide will also like to come in. Go ahead, Kaide.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. We're joined virtually by Mr. Boniface Chizia, who is an economist. He joins us virtually this morning from here in Lagos. Good morning, Mr. Chizia. I know the conversation is largely... yes, it's for you. I know this conversation is largely about the economy, but you know, just piggybacking off that question that Chamberlain raised with our guest in Abuja, Chief Yusuf. It's one thing to make economic pronouncements, talk about ideas, things that we need to do, talk about the challenges, how we need to get to where we ought to get to. But in terms of you know, the personality of the person, maybe the track record, the pedigree. Do you think that plays a key role in receiving the messaging? I mean, those policies, those solutions for the private sector, for the electorate. How big a role do you think that plays in internalizing those, you know, lofty ideas?
Well, you know, I think that the message and the messenger, you know, they are both important, you know. And in fact, I think the thing to say is that we're not short on sound bites, you know, that sound interesting, that sound credible. I think we come short, you know, when it comes to the implementation. That has been the record of this for Nigeria, and probably, if you like, that has been the problem we've had all this while. Well, I don't want to talk about the presenter. What's important really is for you to be a good manager. You don't, as a head of government, you don't have to be an economist per se, but you have to be able to assemble, mobilize resources, and then be able to utilize resources, and then give them space to breathe, give them space to be able to make comments, and you listen attentively to the comments they have to make. They don't have to dictate to you, but because you drive the train, but you listen. If you don't give them the opportunity for them to feel that they've been heard, there you might find that morale is being affected. But I think that I read through the presentation. I'm sure that eventually we'll get to that, and I have some issues with it.
Well, let's just get right into it. Right. Okay. So let's get right into it. Let me just paint a background just before you go on. I know there's a lot to say about this. So, I mean, Nigerians know where we are, really, but just to put this in proper context. So, I mean, we've talked about the budget deficit, 12 trillion naira, debt servicing really huge as compared with our revenue. Inflation is at, what, 19%, unemployment 33%, our poverty rate. I mean, we're second to India. In fact, you know what? About 90 million Nigerians are said to be in poverty right now. I mean, there's lots of indices that point to, I mean, our economy not being where it ought to be. And the former vice president, the PDP presidential candidate, spoke about his plans, the economy. He spoke to the private sector, and I'd like you to begin from this. He talked about lots of opportunities for private sector, and this is what we've heard from previous candidates in the run-up to elections. Is there really anything more opportunities for the private sector that has not been exploited yet?
Well, I think that he made a meal of saying that he's going to private sector is the engine of the economy and so on. That's an obvious statement. Yeah, I mean, what the government, fiscal authorities, monetary authorities are supposed to do is to provide an enabling environment. Right, so the private sector, everybody knows, is the engine of growth. So talk of the real sector, you're talking of manufacturing, you're talking of agriculture, you're talking of SMEs, small and medium scale enterprises. So you're saying the obvious, but he made a meal of that. But I think that obviously, and for a long time, I'm not going back to the time of Philip Asiodo as economic advisor. In fact, he had a pamphlet he published about which was titled "The Private Sector-Led Economy." So I think it's obvious, having the private sector lead the economy. But I think that in the context of what you said, for instance, I told support, I'm really surprised that all the figures are in dollars. And so I think that we've not, the last time I checked, we've not tender currency. It's still naira. But all the figures there, if some to be corrected, they're all in dollars. But I think that for me, what impressed me most was the fact that he talked about restructuring the polity, and also talked about restructuring the economy. And talks about taking Nigeria out of darkness. I think that, like I said, we don't come short on, sound bites and making proposals. But Albatross has been, having them implemented.
Yeah, he spoke about the foreign exchange as well, and I find it quite interesting that you asked why those figures were not in naira, and I'm wondering for you, if you were to do that conversion, which of the rates would you use? Would you use the official one or the 697? Because that's been the challenge for a lot of people. So, which would you have advised he use? I mean, we'll get to the other important issues, but just to take that out of the way.
But central bank doesn't accept. Central bank doesn't accept that as a parallel market. There was a time that central bank was having issues with. The rates at the parallel market and so on and so forth, and we're trying to chase that rate. And Central Bank came and made a categorical definitive statement to say that, as far as they are concerned, parallel market is insignificant. But of course, for economic agents, but the reality on ground is that if you need to source foreign exchange, and then you can't get it from the official sources, we are challenged in that respect. Then you get it from the alternative source. And of course, most economic agents in this environment, the fact is that they've done their pricing, using the parallel market rates. And so while the official rate is like 420, thereabout, around that's the official window, but the parallel market, as I've been told, has gone up beyond 700 naira. So I think those are some of the issues. And of course, but the challenge that it poses to the authorities is that the arbitrage opportunity, that the spread between the official and the parallel market rate, it creates lots of incentive, for trying to round trip and so on and so forth. So I think that those are the challenges. But if you ask me, if you are operating officially, Central Bank will never operate. It doesn't recognize. There was a time the Central Bank, in fact, went after Aboki, FX,
right,
and tried to drive them out of the market. So I think that obviously what we use is the official rate.
Well, what we use, I'd like you to be clear on that. When you say we, do you mean the majority of Nigerians? Because there are people today that will look you in the face and tell you that is not the case. When we want to source foreign exchange, we have to get the 690, 700 and above because they have to do business, they have to pay for school fees, they have to do, medical fees and all of that. So I think it's important to just speak to that reality that yes, we wish that it were that official rate of just over 400, but the reality out there is that it is 690, 700 and the rest. Would you agree with that?
I thought I made myself very clear in my response. I didn't say that official rate is 420. And if you're operating in this economy, and the challenge is the fact that stares all of us in the face, is the fact that we're challenged with supply of foreign exchange. And so and I don't know of anybody who operates in this economy today that's able to source all this foreign exchange from the official market. So if you're not able to do so, and you're going to source from the parallel market, then of course I expect that you play safe if you're an economic agent by pricing, at the parallel market rate, because then it's safer for you to do so. Because even then, if you get it at the official rate, like I talked about the spread between the official rate and the parallel market rate, then you are making a kill. So I talked about the round-tripping temptation that is there because of this massive spread. But of course, there's nothing anybody can do about this in the present circumstances.
Well, Mr. Chizia, the candidate of the People's Democratic Party actually says, there's something that can be done about this. And I'll take this back to our guest in Abuja, Chief Yusuf. And I'll just take from, some of the statements he made. This one particularly about foreign exchange before we move on to other things. And particularly about foreign exchange, he said that we will push, in order to achieve a stable exchange rate, we will push for a foreign exchange policy that encourages capital inflows and makes capital outflows less attractive to the investors. And he said, read my lips, I am saying a stable foreign exchange, not $1 to 1 naira. And we're faced with this, disparity. There's the official exchange rate. There's the reality for a lot of Nigerians. So in terms of getting it stable, we could talk about the value maybe, but getting it stable, what kind of policy is your candidate looking at? Because this is a clear challenge that, in fact, this government is trying to get out of.
Thank you very much, Kawade. The campaign starts on the 28th of this month. We have a package. The team of economists will come up and explain the details to Nigerians. His Excellency Atiku, when he talked about unbundling of NNPC in 2019, people thought it was not possible. Today you can see it. When he talked about telecom, the liberalization of the banking and telecom sector, people thought they were not possible. But today, we have seen the impact of what private sector investment in economy and partnership with government, what it can bring about. In those days of tally, where you had to pick tally to collect money in the banks, when there were no credit cards, no phones, we'll be talking about social media. Many people may not be aware of that, especially the young ones. Atiku is a man who walks the talk. He is a visionary.
Quickly about the NNPC conversation, because I recall that this was a major
If you have read his document on my covenant with Nigerians.
Pardon me, Chief Yusuf, you land on that point, but you talked about the NNPC. So what he was proposing then and what this government has done, I believe they're different entirely. He was, in line with privatization of sorts. But what this government has done was create a vehicle by government, by the way, the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Petroleum Resources to own this in trust for Nigerians. So it's still sort of government, but at least with another string attached. So you can't clearly say they are the same. What he was saying was privatization.
Has that reduced the price of petrol?
No, this
Has
is
that
about
reduced the price of petroleum products?
This is about his proposal and what happened now. You are saying that it has now been done.
I'm just saying.
Has that been done, really?
There's something you call cut and paste. There's something you call cut and paste. If you have read Malam El-Rufai is a Azeta public servant. Don't forget he was the former DG, Director General of the Bureau for Public Enterprise. You will understand that Atiku never had any intention, and he never bought nor sold any national asset to himself. All he's talking about is that you cannot continue to fund ailing companies. And as at that time, his plan was that a few things should be sold out to private sector so that government can raise money. A part of NNPC as at that time will have earned Nigeria a lot of dollars, which could have been used in structural development. But, you know, and he has said it in the past that governments have no business in business. The business of government is to create an enabling environment for business to thrive. It is the private sector which understands business, and they can make it, they can strive and make it thrive. So essentially, talking about he says we encourage manufacturing and promotion of export promotion, because if you only take money, take loans to service debt, take loans for consumption, you will always be in debt. And like the Yorubas will say, that a man who borrows money to pay off another debt is the king of debtors. So essentially, what Atiku is saying is that we are broke. The country is in a slope. Atiku is throwing down a rope of hope. Okay. And I think we should look at what he's saying.
Help me clear this, Chief Yusuf. It's a bit ironic to me. Perhaps you can provide more insight. So he had said in that statement, in that speech, that he would, you know, provide incentives sort of to encourage foreign investors to take risks. Those were his words, to take risks in this economy and essentially show them that it's lucrative to do business here. But in terms of, you know, the foreign exchange policy, he says that he would push for a foreign exchange policy that encourages capital inflows and makes capital outflows less attractive to investors. And that's been a challenge of recent. I mean, you recall the airlines saying that, you know what, we have a lot of funds trapped right there in that economy. We need to get it out. So if he's saying that he will encourage inflows and sort of make outflows less attractive, isn't that just repeating the same challenge that we're faced with right now?
Kayode, human beings make or mar things. Atiku is a man that has a large expanse of network. And that's why his net worth is high. He knows what he's talking about when he says he's going to draw in capital. He has that influence. He has global outlook with local focus. And we don't need to doubt him. When it was not suitable or not even profitable to invest in the Northeast, Atiku has American University of Nigeria. Atiku has Adama Beverages and several other companies. When people were talking about other things, Atiku has invested in a lot of businesses. He understands business. And that's why he said he was discussing at the Chamber of Commerce in Lagos, that he was discussing with like minds.
I understand.
And that's why he opened up to them. Yes, what I'm saying, when the time comes, the economic team will come and speak to you about this in details.
Okay, I understand. Just in terms of receiving this, I mean, you're a public relations person. You've had years of experience. I just want you to maybe help people internalize this better. So they see what's going on right now. A lot of people are blaming the government that allow these people get access to their funds. Investors will not want to come in if they can't repatriate or take out their funds and all of that. And then your candidate is literally saying the same thing, that I would encourage inflows, but make outflows less attractive. So do you want people to see this as the same with what this government is doing, which is the easy way out, or is there an alternative explanation to that?
Kayode, let me put it to you as well. There is channel television. There are other channels, right? We all talk about news, information, entertainment, and So everybody talks about it, but China has won awards several times. What is it that China is doing differently that makes China tick? Atiku is a man who understands the business of business. He knows what he's talking about. And it's not on television. They're going to be talking about that now. Let the campaign start on the 28th, and we'll reel out things for people to see. You will see what he has done, what he's going to do. There's a difference between I will do or have done. We can see what Atiku have done in the past. So, and for him to say, and now there's more experience. Atiku is going to get himself involved in e-administration. He's talking about prudency in government, blocking leakages.
Right.
You know, so these are things that the economic team will come and sort this out.
Okay, Chief Yusuf, we're due for a break
Atiku
now.
knows what he's talking about.
Right. Pardon me, we're due for a break now, but don't worry. We'll be back in a moment. We still have Mr. Chize joining us virtually. There's a conversation around employment, ensuring people are lifted out of poverty. Infrastructure is also a big one. He's spoken about how to get private participation, but you wonder just how much. So please stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
All right, welcome back. Well, Mr. Chize, I haven't heard Chief Yusuf explain Alhaji Atiku Abubakar's perspective as to how he will handle the expectations on forex and investors making capital flight less attractive to investors. Are you satisfied with his explanation saying, well, look, the man understands what business entails and that, well, he will handle business when the time comes? How does that sound to you?
Well, I think that let me just make one or two comments about the rate of exchange because it's dominated discussions in this lines. You know, I think that there's no magic wand. The central bank is on record to have said that if we stop importation of fuel, they are prepared to liberalize the foreign exchange. You know, what you have today is not feasible. If you try to do it, you know, the bottom will fall up off the rate of exchange. The rate of exchange is getting, you know, it gets beyond what it is today. You know, when this government came on board, it was about 150-something naira to $1. Today, we're talking about issue rate that's 400-something naira. So there's no magic wand. We need to bring back productivity in the economy. The economy you have today is so tied to consumption. There's no economic agent that operates in this economy that is not dependent on importation of one form or another. And we don't have an export base. There's one base we have, which is oil. It's ravaged by corruption. We don't even know the amount of oil we extract. We don't know the amount of oil we sell. We don't know the amount of oil we consume. We're not sure. We don't even know. You know, the subsidy itself, you calculate it, it's a problem. And so I think that those are challenges. There's no anybody that tells you anything throughout the thing and float the rate of exchange and so on and so forth doesn't know what he's talking about. Now let me address what he's saying. I think what the PDP president is trying to say is that yes, okay, you make inflow of dollars, you make it attractive. Yes, that's what we want. You know, we want people to to come in and invest. But also on the other side, if you make it, there must be some freedom. You know, if somebody wants to take out his money, one of the problems you have today, the challenge you have today, is that economic agents are not being able to take out their funding. And so you find that the airlines are saying, look, we have so much money blocked in your economy, and we're not taking it out, and we have expenses that are based in dollars, and we can't go on this way. We're going to stop operations. So we've gone through all this, and it goes across sectors. So that's the challenge. So we talk about foreign exchange, but there's no magic wand. So we need to bring back productivity to this economy. We have to begin to end foreign exchange. And I guess we can do that. Like I said earlier on, by the time we begin to talk about restructuring this economy, restructuring the polity, bringing back competition to the various sectors of the economy, and so that we take our minds off, sharing this shrinking cake. And people now have various sectors. It's not something that we didn't do before. We had it just immediately post-independence. But the regions were very active. So in the north you had granite pyramid, in the east you had palm oil, and then you had cocoa and so on. And people were producing and paying. And those forget about this resource control. People let people earn the thing, keep what they've earned, and pay tax to the center. And so and then you now pare down the center, and you make the center most unattractive. What this competition you're having today is because the center, there's so much concentration of power at the center. And so the person that's in ASUU has almost the power of life, life and death. And that mustn't go on post-2023 elections.
Let's even get Chief to respond to that bit. You know, Chief, does your principal subscribe to this resource control? What is his thinking about it?
To start with, His Excellency Atiku has promised that within the first 100 days in government, if Nigerians elect him, he's going to draw in money and create emergency power program to our capacity.
Power program?
Yeah.
I asked about resource control.
I know what you're talking about. He has talked about devolution of power in the medium terms. Create enabling environment for business to grow. If business grows and there's lean central, states will be able to control what they have in terms of have access to what they have and pay tax to the center. But there must be structure. He has talked about fiscal planning. He has talked about even a hub within the presidency to monitor the MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies. You understand me? So the issue of resource control as far is the National Assembly. It's not something that the president just say. Government is not one person. And that's what we should all understand. You understand me?
Isn't that Commander-in Chief? What he says in National Assembly. But what does he think about it?
Who makes the law?
He certainly will have a perspective.
There are three arms of government.
Everybody knows that. But
yes.
He has to have a perspective.
Excuse me. If, see, as a person, as a politician, he has the right to lobby. He can't lord it over anybody.
What will he be lobbying for?
Me? When he talks about dialogue, every other thing is inclusive.
What will he be lobbying for?
I'm just saying to you, if government says, as at now, government gives how much as resource control or whatever to the states.
Is he going to be lobbying the National Assembly to support his perspective or resource control?
Every president lobbies the National Assembly to get along with them, to get their programs done.
Lobby the National Assembly to back him for resource control so that states can control their resources.
But resource control is relative, isn't it? It's relative. Are you talking 100%? Are you talking 50%? Are you talking 10%?
I'm asking you, what is his thinking? What is his perspective about it?
Definitely, resource control will be part of the things he will lobby for.
In what way exactly? Specifically?
When the time comes.
What percentage?
When the time comes, when discussion is put on the table.
We don't have anything on that.
Dialogue is not about one person saying something.
Okay, so we don't know, you can't tell us what he thinks about that. But when he talks about millions of Nigerians going to bed hungry, Nigerians must feed, they will pursue aggressive and innovative food production policy, he talked about the farmers. What is he specifically going to do to get people out of poverty? Because we know how heavy the country is.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. If you know the background of Atiku, he's lost his father at the age of 11. He became a breadwinner in the family. At the age of 15, he bought a house for his mother.
What's your point?
The point I'm making is, Atiku is a farmer. He knows poverty. He knows the meaning of poverty. He got himself out of poverty. A man that can turn around his own life and that of his community can turn around the national economy. So the point is this, Atiku has fertilizer company. He's into livestock. Do you understand me? He has farms. He understands, he has microfinance company, bank, that gives loans, to 80% of it to women. How do you take people? Because if you invest in women, you are improving the nation. The family, the entire family is involved. So what I'm saying is that he has said that he's going to put money into micro, small, and medium enterprises. Because that is the engine room of jobs. Atiku is a wealth creator. So taking people out of poverty. In China, it's not the government that's doing most of the things. Every family has one thing they're doing. And that's why its interest is
that what he wants to do here? To get every family to get what they want to do?
excuse me, talking about, is there a family, let's say extended family, where you don't have a farmer? Government cannot provide job for everyone. But what I'm saying,
several families who don't have farmers in their
I say extended.
But
by the time you draw the extension.
In other words, what we should take from this is that when he speaks about getting people out of poverty, he's talking about farmers.
Not just farmers, the unemployed, the youth. Atiku's university is the headquarters of e-knowledge, Google certified. Young people, so that everybody is not going to depend on government job.
So do we have
Atiku University, excuse me.
You have to go to his university.
Excuse me, I'm not saying you have to go to his university. I'm just saying it's like a pilot scheme. That's what I'm trying to say. Where you have developmental scheme, where people are trained in vocation. In UK, for instance, it's not everybody that goes to university, right? You have apprenticeship, and they even make more money than graduates. You are aware of this. What I'm saying is that he's a man who understands business. He knows that private sector is the one that can create jobs. And when he says he will get people out of poverty, he will surely do that.
Well, when he says that he will undertake far-reaching fiscal restructuring to improve liquidity and manage the fiscal
and block
flow.
leakages.
And then I see he also went ahead and says how he reeled out how several government agencies, for instance, he talked about, is it 17 of them, that there are too many policies, too many SMEs. He speak about 17 agencies under supervision. So then looking through, you would have thought that he said, since there are too many, that something will give, but we don't see anything following that. Is he saying he's going to merge?
This is one speech.
No, is he going to merge ministries, for instance? Since he says there are too many agencies, I say what?
Remember, under the Obasanjo Atiku regime, administration, there was what's called the Orosanye report.
So this is
is
he copying and pasting it here?
Excuse me. Orosanye worked under them. The committee was, just saying, the committee was set up. An idea that is still good, that is still relevant to this present moment, why will you throw it away?
So
no case dies. All I'm saying.
Did he mention it here?
Excuse me, I'm just saying to you. I'm just saying, this is one speech.
Yeah, we're trying to understand it.
You need to read his covenant with Nigerians to get to the details of everything he's trying to talk about.
Well, you've read it.
Excuse me, I'm just saying to you, let the campaign start. Because there are people who are there trying to pick things to make up their own campaign item. But you know that.
I don't understand.
You know.
I don't quite get the point. So, if we're trying to understand if he's going to merge ministries, it's not going to be rocket science for anybody else to do.
I said let the campaign start. Some people are still building their own manifesto. Atiku is already miles ahead.
So what, you're holding back because you don't want people to
all I'm saying to you, see, we have sectors. When the economic team comes here, they will tell you in details when the campaign starts. There are some people looking somewhere who are trying to pick some of the ideas of Atiku.
Oh, you're talking to Nigerians.
It was just, I know. I'm just saying to you. He has just told you. Excuse me. He has told you. He has told you these are the things he wants to do, in broad terms.
Broad terms, not specific terms.
Excuse me. He has said he will create jobs. He has said he will improve power supply. He has said he will push money into micro, medium, small and small enterprises. He has said he will make government prudent. He will work on lean government. He has said he will dialogue with people. He will bring people on the table. He will unify the country. I think we should take him, believe him. Atiku is traceable. It's believable and it's plausible.
Well, Mr. Chizia, when he speaks about the MSMEs and if he's going to inject $310 billion into the MSME funds and speaking about the farmers as well, in context of getting people out of poverty, what kind of impact will this have?
Well, first of all, $10 billion is Dr. Chizia. You guys seem to forget. You know, I think that, you know, I think that, Chamberlain, yeah. Okay, I see you're still laughing. You know, Chamberlain, I think that what to bring about poverty alleviation, and first of all, let me make a comment on what about whether in fact it's going to collapse MDAs and so on and so forth. I think what he tried to do there, he itemized. We looked at the Ministry of Trade, and then he showed so many agencies and departments, you know, within that. I was saying that in fact they are bound to be acting at cross purposes, and what is implied there is to some extent, like the gentleman at the studio just said, that there's an implied indication that there might be a need for us to restructure, which I think I subscribe to. But on the other hand, he also goes ahead to say that in the presidency, he was going to create a unit that we talked about, you know, infrastructure, debt financing, and so on and so forth. And one of the things we must take on going forward is that he also says there are some inconsistencies. He talks about reducing, when you do the budget, he wants to reduce the revenue side, revenue expenditure, so about 45%. Now, and then, you know, that means you try and boost the capital expenditure. Of course, again, that's the way to go, because if you have capital expenditure, that's what's going to create, you know, the growth that creates the employment and so on and so forth. But then what that means is that going forward, like he did say also in his presentation, you have to rationalize expenditure. And so that they're looking forward, they must be looking forward to saying, look, we have to rationalize the agencies and departments and so on and so forth. And then original report, of course, goes back to 2014. It's dated as it were. We'll keep on harping on it. But I think that, again, but that could be indicative. But for you to bring about growth in the economy, I mean, to bring about SMEs and so on, SMEs are the engine of the economy. And for them to thrive, the economy, they must have an enabling environment, they must have access to funding, they must have access to resources, they produce whatever they produce, they must market what they produce and so on and so forth. So you have to try as much as possible to remove, you know, the restrictions and challenges on their path. But SMEs are a short path for you to grow the economy, because in terms of job creation, that's a potent sector for creating jobs in the economy. And like has been highlighted, you know, it's becoming a symptom. It's the fact that unemployment in this economy is a huge problem. And that has added, you know, to a large extent, to social problems we have in our economy. So I think that there are some inconsistencies I expect that as they go on, this things will be tidied up. I go with the fact that we need to rationalize agencies, but it's not going to be very easy for us to do. But then we hope that they find the political will to do so. Just as we hope that somebody will find the political will to make sure that, you know, there's no subsidy. There's no subsidy.
The thing about
subsidy,
Dr. Tisha, the thing about these things, if you say it's implied, and they'll tell you, I never said this. The chief will always, if you imply something, the chief could say, well, my principal did not tell you he will do this. So if you imply, yes, that is your own implied or implication, your meaning. So that's what I'd like to ask them specifically. What will he do concerning these things? That's why we put it that way. But I do get your point, absolutely. But just to wind down on this, I mean, civil service is huge. It's an engine room for some of these things. If I could just ask Chief on the final note, what is his thinking? Is it likely to say, look, civil service is too wieldy. We need to do something drastic about civil service because policies rise and fall at that level?
His Excellency Atiku said he will take tough decisions, not on civil service.
Not what?
He will take tough decisions on security.
Not on civil service?
Listen to me now. He will take tough decisions on security. And there's going to be a monitoring session in the presidency that will make sure that everybody that earns money from government adds value to government.
All right, Chief Alaba Yusuf.
And that means, in broad terms, sanity in the system.
Is this streamlining civil service? What does sanity mean?
Sanity in the system is that you work your time, you time your work.
So we won't streamline the civil service?
I would not understand your English.
I thought you said he worked with Oronsaye report.
Excuse me.
He worked in the presidency.
Excuse me.
He knows what to do. And the report said
whatever
is good, down.
Whatever is good in the Oronsaye report will be taken.
Whatever is good doesn't mean anything, Chief.
It's empty as streamlining. So all I'm saying that he has not said, Atiku is not going to take job from people. but you make people more productive.
Well, I knew you were
That's
going
it.
to say that. I know. Chief Alaba Yusuf is the head public relations and member spokespersons committee of Atiku Okawa 2023 Presidential Campaign Council. We've also had Dr. Boniface Chizia, an economist, both of them weighing in on the policies of the presidential candidate of the PDP. Gentlemen, thank you both for coming on. Right, then we will be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
With that, the situation on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, how people have spent hours in that traffic. And we'd like to bring you live updates from the situation, the traffic situation on that axis. You can see pictures. This is the situation of a lot of people, not just this morning, from yesterday. And we have my colleague, Bukola Samuel Wenimo, who's been joining the show just right there in traffic. Bukola, I know such a harrowing experience, having been in that traffic for what, 4 hours or thereabouts for you. Can you just tell us, what is the situation right now?
Well, good morning, Kadi. It's beginning to move, thankfully. First of all, let me just say that I've been in traffic since about 5:25 a.m. or thereabouts. And unlike other days, you have to be prepared for the traffic on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Because when you get to the Long Bridge, that's when the traffic usually starts. But today the traffic started well before Long Bridge. For me, it started at MFM. And we didn't know what was responsible for the traffic. My colleague who also uses this route had prepared me beforehand to say that the traffic had started somewhere at Magudu. But for me, it started at MFM, as I said. Now, there are alternative routes. I wonder if you saw it in that video, if it was captured, on both sides of the expressway. Those alternative routes, you can access them at Arepo. Yes, so you divert, you take the underbridge at Arepo for the alternative route that leads to Kara and that leads to Opik. But today, I can see very little activity on the alternative route. So what is responsible for the longer delay way back today, we really don't understand. But I'm getting closer to what we know is responsible, which is the rehabilitation work done here at Opik end of the expressway, just before the turning that goes back to by the end of the expressway, and the one that leads to Lagos. So we know that this is what causes the congestion, and the vehicles begin to queue, and then it goes way back to Long Bridge. But it started way back this morning. If the alternative route, go ahead,
Pardon me, I mean, you can even hear the frustration from one of the drivers having to go through that. Clearly, this is not the usual traffic. And I know that, yes, a lot of people will need to brace up, people coming from not just Ibadan, but from different parts of the country into Lagos this morning. We'll come back to you for more updates. Really, my heart goes out to you. I hope to see you in the office a few hours, who knows, from now. But please stay strong, all right?
Thank you, Gandhi.
All right, my colleague Bukola Samuel with me more, just right in the middle of that traffic, like thousands of other commuters. We'll take a quick break now. When we return, we'll give you an insight into just another angle of the political conversation this morning. Don't go away.
The Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, and the Labour Party have their members spread across this room to rub minds and put together a blueprint to rescue Nigeria. In his welcome address, the national chairman of the party, Mr. Julius Abure, did not shy away from speaking on the state of the nation.
Insecurity has ravaged the country. There is hunger, there is poverty, there is unemployment. The country is not working. Students are at home, no school. This is the situation we find ourselves. And it is very clear to us that it cannot be business as usual come 2023.
Niger State is 76.3 thousand square kilometers of land, fertile land. They can't feed themselves, they can't feed Nigeria, they can't export anything. Netherlands, minus water is 33,000 square kilometers of land. Total agricultural export last year, $120 billion.
The president of the NLC, Mr. Ayuba Waba, and human rights lawyer Femi Falana believe that the nation is in a mess while Nigerians are breaking boundaries abroad.
To remind us of the enormous task of what we need to do and to promote candidate of the Labour Party, but also go to the field. Particularly our youth, I'm so happy that the youth have aligned themselves with the structures and the struggle. I had to branch to Alabama to visit the University of Alabama. I was told that 70% of the wealth of Alabama was actually aligned to the university. And I went there to see a professor in Nigeria. He said the best 10 are actually Nigerians. So what is going wrong with us is about harnessing our resources, both human and material, to be able to add value and make Nigerian citizens better.
Let me challenge the leaders of the Labour Party. I beg you. You ain't going to get power in Nigeria by adopting the methods of the bourgeoisie. If you want to mobilize the Nigerian people, you must go beyond visiting those who destroy Nigeria. From today, your candidates must go to the offices of all the trade unions in Nigeria. The offices of women organizations, youth organizations, because the people you are competing with, please know this, have acquired, I bet illegally, unbelievable sums of money. And what do they want to do? They want to bribe voters because they have weaponized poverty. We are also told, and Nigeria is the only country that comes out where the government will say, we are losing $700 million every day because of oil theft. Who are the oil thieves? They know them. Oil theft, oil smuggling, all have official backing. Again, Nigeria is the only oil producing country without that has not acquired the meter to know how much oil you produce daily. Nigeria is the only oil producing country that has refused to acquire that meter.
Candidates flying the flag of the party talk about their chances despite divergent views that the party has no structure.
Such that they are able to go back to their villages, to their polling units, and convince 5, 10 people to vote for the party, and then we can win. That is the only way we win.
As campaigns officially begin later this month, the party promises to mobilize its members and members of the labor unions across the country to work for the success of Mr. Peter Obi during the presidential elections in 2023. Dele Omoyeni, Channels Television News.
Welcome back to Victor May joins us now to talk us through some of what you heard in that retreat. He is a senatorial candidate for the Labour Party from Anambra State. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, that retreat, while the presidential candidate of the party was speaking, talking about Netherlands, before Mr. Falana spoke, which he also alluded to saying, look, because some of the examples that he gave, those countries that he highlighted, the literacy level is higher than ours, so the voting mindset is different from ours. So when Mr. Falana then says, look, you have to be realistic about what you need to do going down there, because some have weaponized poverty, meaning Labour is aware of what is going on. But in that context still, what's the thinking now? Because if there are many who still wonder how Labour Party is going to pull this through, because when the chips are down on that particular day, the mindset of the voter will be different from what they might have been hearing today.
Well, thank you. One important point that needs to be made is the state of affairs in the country, you know, and no matter the segment we are dealing with, whether the people are literate or not, what will play a big role in the forthcoming election will be the harsh economic realities on ground that affects everybody, including the literate and the illiterate. So the challenges are there, but if you look at the phenomenon now, the Labour Party movement and the obedient movement in Nigeria, you will see that every segment of the population has joined. Every segment has joined in propelling this desire for change in the status quo in Nigeria. It's a different thing if people are living well, they have access to food, they have access to Medicare, they have access to the necessary things for having a quality life. If it is not there, you cannot use that old measures to determine the actions of the electorate, what they will likely do.
But Chief, you know this better than I do because you've participated in elections several times and you still are. Are you discountenancing the scenario that play out? Because this will not be the first elections we're going into. Several elections down the line, many have also said, look, the economic realities at that time were harsh. Yet, the people never looked beyond that particular day. For pecuniary gains, they cast their vote. So are you saying that is not a factor to consider?
No, it's not going to be the same this time around.
How so?
The situation before and now are not comparable. The things have gotten so worse that if you keep listening to people who make available these statistics, they resonate with the people because the things have become so difficult for everybody. Before, we weren't selling diesel for 900 naira per liter. We weren't selling kerosene, which the ordinary man buys to cook his food or her food, over 700 naira per liter. Our dollar wasn't almost 700 naira per dollar. Pound sterling, you can't even imagine it, and so on and so forth. So there's a saying in my place that you don't use hunchback to compare any element, you know. So the situation now is very debilitating, but everybody is feeling the pangs of this hardship. If you are planning to bring money to go and bribe the voters, I tell you that in 2023, it is going to be a different ball game. Because if you look at the attitude of the ordinary people today, they have removed their eyes from certain directions because they've lost hope completely in those directions. They are now moving along a line that they see hope. Because these things are there for everybody to see.
So how do you explain this to us? Because the ASUU elections happened in this economic time, you know, and yes, the APC may have lost it and PDP won, and then the APC goes to court at the moment. But if you look at the results, although people say the realities at that time were harsh, it was really tough, over 300,000 people voted for the APC. Doesn't that tell you something?
But they lost the election. What you will check is the outcome of the election. If money, if the money was the decider of that election, APC would have won.
No, what I'm trying to ask is that the amount of people who didn't think that the economic realities were that harsh, doesn't that concern you? Over 300,000?
Well, look at the situation there. The government in the state is being run by the APC. So the entire government structure and apparatus, APC, it is that resolved to change the situation that made ASUU people to overpower the APC, albeit with less than 50,000 votes, but they defeated them. If money were to be the measure of who wins, APC will overrun PDP. PDP had nothing on ground, but the power of the people remove the APC. That was the incumbent administration.
People can't exactly say they had nothing on the ground, because if you look at the last elections, you saw how closely they ran the APC, and there were controversies at the time. And so perhaps they just leveraged on that and then got this result.
No, 4 years, 4 years would have been a long time for a party that lost an election to lose steam.
But at the national stage, it's going to be a different scenario entirely. I mean, you speak about the reach, the wherewithal, the networks, how to go into all of those crannies. You will need people to help you prosecute these elections. How confident is Labour about that?
Well, that is the power of the Labour Party now. That is it. The people are with the party. You know, look at things going on in Nigeria across the states of the Federation. If you say that the Labour Party is weak in some areas, they spring up a surprise. In Ondo, you saw how people trooped out. In Cross River, you saw it. In Nasarawa here, you saw it. And it's going on and on like that across Nigeria. So what is the power of the Labour Party now? Are the people, the ordinary people. Despite the things being said, oh, you don't have structure, you don't have this, you don't have that, they've continued to overwhelm their opponents. Yes, people from the other parties are now very panicky. Initially, they were making loose statements that this party is not. And today, Labour Party is their nightmare. Why has it happened? Is Labour Party sharing money? Labour Party is not sharing money to anybody.
What is the focus of Labour? Is it, you say yet?
No, at least from what you are seeing up to now.
So it means
they're not sharing money. No, they will not share money. We don't give shit. We don't. From the summary you are seeing, that's what I'm trying to tell you, that you cannot say that they have influenced anybody with money.
But it takes money. But it takes money to prosecute elections in this country.
Well, the resolve and the will of the people to take their nation back will determine the election. If it is money, that's what I'm telling you. If it is money, Labour Party will not still be going around today. It is not money. People have decided to put a stop to this drift.
So wait, what is Labour Party's thinking? Is it that they will not, when they say they will not share money, what does that mean? They will not deploy or allot funds for prosecuting the elections?
You know what Labour Party is doing? Labour Party is highlighting the problems of the country. Labour Party is using every opportunity to tell the citizens that this place has collapsed. And the citizens are agreeing that this place has collapsed. Because they're not telling them to agree. They're not forcing them to agree. They say, oh, you are telling us what we already know. And the Labour Party says this is the way to go. The presidential candidate of the Labour Party is the most traveled presidential candidate in Nigeria today. He meets every strata of the society, talking to them directly.
So will people be wrong to say that they think that Labour Party is really about the presidential candidate, the presidential slot, or the presidential, if they can win the presidential ticket, that suffices for them, hence the performance in Ekiti and Osun?
No. Ekiti and Osun were elections conducted just before the movement garnered momentum, And today, Labour Party has candidates across the country. Yesterday and 2 days ago, we were in a leadership retreat here in Abuja. And all the candidates of the party we have invited, they were brought together in one place. For 2 days, papers were presented, leadership papers were presented, and all the candidates, both House of Assembly, House of Reps, Senate, gubernatorial candidate, and the presidential candidate were all in attendance, listening to the problems of the nation. That is the way to prepare, Well, and by the time you dissolve or bring down the issues to the ground, there's nobody who will take a gun and shoot himself. If the governments they've had in this country have failed the people of Nigeria, why will anybody want to go and vote again? Let me tell you something that happened in Anambra in 2021 during the governorship election. It was in your television too. A woman was approached with money to vote for a certain party. The woman made noise and said over her dead body, will she take money to vote for that party?
Chief
I think that she's using her vote to buy hardship.
You know, Chief Ome,
she rejected the money, made noise, created a scene, and she was videoed.
Well, Chief Ome, if you can hear me.
So a poor woman, at that.
Right, Chief Ome, if I can just come in now.
This is happen again as we go up.
If we can just come in now quickly, Chief Ome. That example you cited is quite interesting. If you can hear me, Chief Ome. That example is quite interesting because for Anambra, I mean, that's a state we know that APGA is, I mean, has a major stake there. APGA literally is Anambra. Anambra is APGA's, you know, politicians would say. But, you know, for this one, it's quite different because the Labour Party is, I mean, for some people, new kid on the block compared to the APC and the PDP. But let me go straight to my question. By the way, a lot of people are still surprised saying that you're in Labour Party. I mean, I was just talking about APGA. You just gave the example of APGA. So it's still very tricky for them to, you know, take that out of their minds. But still off that question, really, I noticed that your party also launched this free membership drive, sort of to get more people into the fold of the party. And you made that distinction in your first statements that there is the Labour Party movement and the obedient movement. And that question has been, you know, persistent. How are you going to go about the structure, getting that spread, ensuring that, I mean, beyond maybe presidency, you also get some other positions. In fact, some people are even tipping you to be Senate president if you win that election. But that aside, is that the challenge you noticed? Hence, that membership drive, trying to get members? Because it's one thing to have people on social media supporting the obedient movement. It's another thing to have membership. Other parties boast of, what, 40 million members. So how many members does Labour Party have?
Well, we don't have a final tally now. People will continue to register. We also launched an online portal for registration. Membership is free. This is the way to know a party that has come to bring change. You don't pay to become a member of a political party. So this party from the one is focused on carrying everybody along, particularly the lowly placed people. You want to become a member of a party, you go and take the membership card. You don't pay a dime. And it is working. I can tell you that people are everywhere working hard to join this party by demanding for membership cards. And that's why the party launched 20 million membership cards just 2 days ago. And they will be made available to people free of charge. So people are joining in droves by the day, by the hour. And that is the way to amass the strength you are talking about. I have said it previously that when you continue to judge a new thing with the old order, you'll be making a mistake. During this retreat, the Nigerian Labour Congress, the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria came with all their leadership of the affiliate organizations to the conference, to the retreat. And you were there seeing reports that they have assured 12 million of the votes of their members for the Labour Party. You are still not averting your mind to it. 12 million votes of their members. They have offered it. And have offered their structures down to the 774 local government areas in the country.
I'm sorry, Chief Ome.
There's no village.
I mean, I can only offer my vote, really, as an individual. Party? So it's quite interesting. I understand that talk, but, I mean, how far can you go with offering the votes of others, except there's some rigging involved? You're only assured of my vote. You're not assured of other people's vote. Talk more of 12 million. But you made that point about the... Well, I'm not assuring you of my vote. I just made that statement. Don't misconstrue that, Chief Ome. Don't get me into that. But let's talk about you know, this old order and the new order you talked about. I mean, you have been with APGA, founded in 2003, before you moved into Labour Party just a few months ago. The presidential candidate of Labour Party has been in the People's Democratic Party, being the vice presidential candidate before he moved into you know, the Labour Party. And I just wonder for you, how is it possible then to say this is the new order? There's that saying that, can you put new wine into old wine skin? What has changed for you, really? How did you become, do I say, born again? For you, for the candidate and others who are now in Labour Party?
No, I've always been a progressive. there are two parties, APC and PDP, which Nigerians believe have mismanaged the affairs of this country. I've not been part of APC, you know. I started with the PDP and resigned far back in 2001 when I saw the shenanigans playing out in that party. So I have been in a party in the opposition all this while. I've been in ABGA. And now we are challenging the status quo again through the Labour Party. That's the natural place where I will belong. And that's why I joined. Because you cannot do the same thing all over and over again and expect a different result. Today, the campaigns will soon start. And you see people who are offering themselves. They've been part of leadership over the years at the highest level. And Nigeria has not made any progress. So it is better to go through a new way of thinking. Our presidential candidate has ably demonstrated that he knows what the issues are, the problems and the solutions therein. And that is why everybody is following Mr. Peter Obi of the Labour Party. The Labour Party cannot be accused of misgoverning Nigeria at any point in history. They've not had that opportunity. So what we need now is to test a new thing. And that is the disposition of the Nigerian electorate. Let us try a new thing. We cannot go back to APC, we cannot go back to PDP and expect a turnaround of the economy of Nigeria. They have been in charge. I listened to a gentleman talking about small and medium scale enterprises, SMEs. Does it mean that the APC government, current APC government, is not aware of SMEs? Are they not aware of it? So somebody will come and tell you, oh, in China it is like this. What about the current government? Or are they not aware that SMEs are the engine room of every economy? Why have they not used that as a way of turning the economy of Nigeria around? What is important is the character, the competence, and the commitment of the chief executive. Is the person who will do all this.
When your candidate says, in the same retreat, Labour president, they said that they were going to give Labour Party, they will produce 12 million votes. Did you actually believe that?
Yes, of course I believe that, because it's a structured organization.
12 million votes?
This is a structured organization. That's what I'm telling you. It's not just a careless statement. There, they had a political commission. All of them were there.
But all of them are not members of Labour Party. Many of them will have their own soft spot for other parties.
So if you subscribe to the membership of an organization, there must be a relationship.
So they're going to compel them, 12 million people, to vote for the Labour Party?
Well, those people are also suffering. If you understand what I'm saying, this is the issue is not really about where you belong now. I know that there are people in PDP who will vote for Labour Party. I know that there are people who are in APC who will vote for Labour Party. What is important is the task of rescuing Nigeria. And people don't believe that these things can work anywhere outside this platform now.
So how is, as we wind down, how is Labour Party going to deal with the fact that many of the people who you would deploy nationally for the presidential elections may not have that requisite experience at that level, perhaps not having prosecuted that kind of elections before? And some of the parties who are experienced in handling some of this may just outwit them at the last minute or at some point. You never know.
I've answered this question before.
Oh.
This is just a mere supposition. You believe that people are not there for Labour Party on the day of election. Why should you believe so? You know, this girl...
I'm not saying not there. They may be there.
How will I outwit them?
But the experience to navigate the ropes at that stage is different.
No, don't feel so.
Okay.
The era of election manipulation is gone. Because I've participated in past 3 elections, and I know when they mess the election up. With the introduction of the beavers machine, it is very difficult for anybody to come and rig an election now. When you are there and you are accredited and you put your vote, that is done. People are there for the vote to be counted. So how will you change the result when the result is uploaded to INEC server? These manipulations and conjuring of figures they do during collation. During collation, that's when they do it. We have to believe that every person who is hungry in Nigeria will not want bad leadership in 2023.
Well, we have some accusations that your principal has not visited the Northwest as perhaps they expect him to. Is that the case?
Is it in a rally form or going to meet people? He has been consulting. Mr. Peter Obi is one of the most traveled presidential candidates, consulting all zones in the country, meeting people, you know? So it's when the campaign starts and we have open rallies that we begin to know where one has campaigned and where one has not campaigned. In our own case, there are presidential candidates that emerged without coming to the Southeast to ask for delegates' votes. They didn't come. You know, so when people make these claims, they try to divert attention from the real issues. And the real issues are the scorching environment we are living under in Nigeria today, the economic hardship, you know, and the presentations being made by Mr. Obi, whether on television or when he meets people, hit on these problems and the way he thinks the problems can be solved. So if you don't have the communication of your full knowledge of the issues and the problems and how they will be solved, how are you hoping to win?
All right. Well, thank you very much indeed. Chief Victor Omeh is the senatorial candidate of Labour Party in Anambra State. Thank you very much and all the best.
Thank you very much. Somebody must fix Nigeria, not those who contributed to the problems.
Well, we'll have some messages, but
you heard Falana what he said.
Yeah, let's see how Bukola is wading through the traffic where she is. Hello, Bukola.
Good morning, Chamberlain. Bukola has been set free, finally. You can see the outbound route of the traffic is flowing freely, but the one that heads to Lagos is where you find the congestion. And so I spent all of 3 hours in traffic this morning. The traffic started at MFM. Usually you prepare for the traffic on the Lagos Ibadan Expressway caused by this rehabilitation work carried out by the federal government. But this time around, the traffic didn't start at the, what do you call it now, the industry end of the Long Bridge, which is where it begins. And you know that, in all of 20 to 30 minutes, you're out of it. But it started at MFM. And motorists were wondering what the problem was. So we couldn't find out what the problem was, why the traffic started earlier than usual this time around. In the shots that were provided, I wonder if you can see that there are alternative routes on both ends of the expressway. The one that connects to Opik, close to us here, and the one that connects Kara, where you find the butchers. But this time around, we found that the alternative routes had less activity. So motorists were not really using the alternative routes, perhaps because the alternative routes are really bad. But the one-way patrons, we find a lot of them on the expressway today. And you can also see that the motorcycles were doing quick business. You find a lot of them riding against traffic on the Ibadan route of the expressway so that they can get commuters to their destinations quickly. So we found a lot of motorists and motorcycle riders riding and driving against traffic this morning. But what caused the traffic and made us spend longer hours on the routes today, we really can't tell. Yes, Chamberlain.
What a day it is already, and it will be for many others who are already on that route. I mean, that's the route quite a number of people have to go through to get to wherever it is that they've got their business. But, Buki, we do thank you for that perspective. And having been set free as well. So, if you've got anyone else, I mean, who, may want to go through that route, you may advise them to do otherwise if they can. Well, that is the show today. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. Until then, Take care of yourself. I'm Chamberlain. So.
Well, we'll see your mails and tweets. Ejike, Ezekbenga, Femi, and the rest. Thank you so much. We'll have to go now. We've been set free as well. So on behalf of Bukola Samuel Wemimo, who's on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and myself, I'm Kayode Okikelu. Have a splendid day.